Speaker today. Typically, Juan, you're competing, you should have had an introduction. Typically, a speaker brings a written introduction, which Camille, thank you for calling me. I believe it was around 2 o'clock and we arranged it. Mark didn't show, so you are it. So, Juan, come on up. Let's hear what you have to say. 5 to 7 minutes. Everyone, please make good notes because he is competing in the contest. Anything you can do to help him, I'm sure he will appreciate it. Juan, title of your speech, sir.
The power of fear.
The power of fear. The power of fear, Juan Arcelo.
The year is 1999. Location, the majestic countryside of Colombia, South America. The characters involved, a 7-year-old version of yours truly, and my spunky 5-year-old cousin, Paola, who at that moment was screaming bloody murder from the top of a very tall tree she had just climbed. I can still remember to this very day, standing in front of that tree, looking up at her, petrified, feeling completely helpless, that I was afraid to climb up and help her come down from that tree. That will be the last time I'll let fear hold me back from doing something that I know I should do. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and esteemed guests, have you ever been so afraid of doing something that you were literally paralyzed from the fear you felt? I feel that way every time I turn on the news and see how Donald Trump is doing. But I digress. I'm talking about the feelings of butterflies we get at the pit of our stomach when we get up and speak in public, or when we try to do something out of our comfort zone, or even when we try to apologize to someone for something we did. We have different names for that feeling: anxiety, resistance, uneasiness. But when it comes down to it, it's just fear. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of not living up to our own expectations. Today you're going to learn 3 very simple techniques and mindsets that can help you overcome any type of fear. Because believe it or not, there is power in fear. We just gotta know how to use it. Let's go back to the very beginning of the story. When I was 7 years old, I was completely terrified of heights. I didn't play on the playgrounds, I didn't swing on the swings, and I didn't monkey around in bucky bars. And because of that fear of heights, I couldn't really connect with the other kids. As a result, I became very introverted and shy. Naturally, my parents took notice of this, and they wanted to help out. They came up with a brilliant idea to send me away to my grandparents for summer vacation. And they lived in the Colombian countryside, which of course is very hilly. I thought my parents were crazy. They were definitely not going to win the award for Mom and Dad of the Year. But they actually taught me the first lesson about overcoming fear. And that's that we have to face our fears head on. Motivational speeches, inspirational videos, therapy, all of that is great and all. But ultimately, we have to find the courage within ourselves to face our fears head on. That trauma is exactly what we need. And accepting that fact is the first step to conquering what we fear the most. But of course, I didn't know this back then. So I spent the majority of that summer isolated in my grandparents' house. They had a little barn with some chickens, some pigs, and some dogs, and they became my best friends for the first half of that summer. Until one fateful day, my cousin and her family got back from their summer vacation. They lived nearby, and one summer afternoon, she came over to play with me. Of course, she wanted to play outside. I refused. But after 2 hours of nagging and poking me, I finally gave in, and we went for a little hike. Even though I was walking on eggshells that entire time, it was actually really beautiful. The countryside was lush with colors. The mountain breeze felt absolutely amazing on my skin. It was like a dream. However, that dream soon warped into a nightmare when we got to a clearing. And in the middle of the clearing popped out a gargantuan tree. I mean, this thing was massive. My heart started to beat faster. I started to breathe heavier, and my hands got really clammy. And what is my cousin's reactions? Her eyes lit up, and she runs full throttle towards that tree. And she starts climbing higher and higher and higher. And I don't think she realized how high she was climbing, because as soon as she looked down, she completely freaked out. She started screaming at the top of her lungs. She was crying hysterically. She was practically begging me to climb up and help her. That's what we picked up from the beginning of our story. There we were in the middle of the forest, miles away from any of our relatives, when the daunting realization set upon me that it was going to be up to me to climb up and save her. I had no other choice. And that's the second lesson that I learned about overcoming fear. Not only do we have to expose ourselves to what we fear the most, but we have to feel like we have no other choice but to actually do it. because that's the only way we're going to find the motivation to actually commit and take action. I tuned everything off, I took a deep breath, and I ran straight towards that tree. And I climbed it as fast as I could, and I didn't make the same mistake my cousin did. I didn't look down, not even once. I got to the branch where she was, I reached out my hand, and I pulled her in. Whereas it took us about a minute to 2 minutes to climb up, it took us a good hour and a half to climb up. But as soon as I reached that forest floor, boy, I felt like a champ. I was on top of the world, and I never looked back down again. Something very interesting happened after that day. Even though I still felt that paralyzing fear within my core, I realized that it was a little less intense than it was before. So every day after that, I started to hike a little higher on hills. I climbed taller and taller trees, and eventually, those feelings of anxiety and resistance that I felt were replaced by feelings of excitement and eagerness. And this is the third and final technique that I learned about overcoming fear. We have to learn to reframe those feelings of anxiety and resistance, not as something bad, but as something good, as fuel that will take us where we want to go. Fellow Toastmasters, to this very day, I'm a self-proclaimed adrenaline junkie. I use that fuel of fear to help me go on my first big roller coaster. I use that fuel of fear to ask out my prom date during my high school dance. And I used that fuel of fear a year ago when I stepped into a strange club with a strange name and did something called table topics for the first time. And it's without a doubt one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. My call to action is simply this. What is something that you fear, that you're afraid, that gives you butterflies? And implement these 3 same techniques that I did. First of all, you have to accept the fact that you have to expose yourself to what you fear the most. There is no magic pill that will help you. Number 2, you have to find a way to force yourself that you have no other choice but to actually do it. Failure is not an option. And finally, simply reframe those feelings, those anxiety-filled sensations, and think of it as indicators of your body telling you that you should go to something. If there is something that you should fear, it's these 3 things. Fear living a wasted life. Fear not living to your full potential. And fear regrets. Because that's the ultimate motivation that you will have to take you where you want to go. And that, my friends, is the true power of fear.
Yeah. Thank you, Tom.